guys, this is Thaddeus from Going Nerdy, and today, with the upcoming Episode 8 set to release sometime in the next couple of months, well, set to release on December 16th, 2017, which is just less than 100 days away, it is time to start speculating wildly. Now, this video is a video that a lot of people have done before, and what I want to do is I want to talk about who Rey's parents are and why either they are important or they are not important. Now, there are 4 possible lineages that we could follow, and while we will be discussing some of the more mainstream concepts, I do have a few random thoughts that she could potentially be someone that we don't expect. Now, with that, I want to go ahead and just jump right in. Now, the obvious choice is Rey is going to be Luke's daughter. Everything in the Star Wars Episode 7 kind of sets it up. The fact that Luke's lightsaber calls out to Rey. The fact that she is really good with machines, much like Anakin was. The fact that she can understand languages much like Anakin did, right? Much like Luke can do, right? Understanding Chewbacca and understanding the droids and understanding a number of little things. Those little, tiny little aspects do really point to Luke being her father. But who is her mother? Now, in the old canon, for those of you who don't know, her mother, or the wife of Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker, was Mara Jade, former Emperor's Hand, former person who served the Emperor, and former assassin who tried to kill Luke, right? And who fits that description in the modern canon? Well, no one really, unless you count Dr. Aphra. Now, Dr. Aphra is a character from the comics. Now, the comics are now canon. Everything that was relaunched from the purchase of Disney, or the purchase of Lucasfilm by Disney, is now canon. Now, it has been said by Kathleen Kennedy, she's the, all-being, seeing guru of Star Wars. She's the kind of Palpatine at Disney who says what for Star Wars. Now, Kennedy has said that anytime there's a conflict with the books versus the movies will always trump the books, right? That's comic books, video games, anything that's come out since the relaunch of canon. But Dr. Aphra is a new member of the canon. She has her own comic book, so she is going to be important. For those of you who don't know who Dr. Aphra is, she is a crypto scientist, I don't even know what she is. She's an archaeologist of some sort who studies droids. And she started working with Darth Vader in an attempt for Vader to build his own droid army to protect himself, because the machinations of the Emperor never stop, even with his hand, which is Darth Vader. But what's interesting is Aphra and Vader don't really see eye to eye, don't really get along. In fact, in the comics, they seem to fight quite a bit. And it's really interesting because there is some back and forth. Now, her story, there is some back and forth between Luke and Aphra. It is definitely one of those will they, won't they relationships. I would totally see that happening. Now, in the end of Episode 7, we see Luke standing on the island alone, and it looks like just over his left or right shoulder, but what is he looking at? He's looking down at something, and it is quite possibly a tombstone. It's definitely been speculated that it is a tombstone. Now, Dr. Aphra fits a lot of the archetypes that Mara Jade fit. I don't think we're going to have Mara Jade introduced. I think she's done, right? She was a really cool character, and she was needed for the plot of the old canon, right? When Jason and Jaina Solo, that whole back and forth, Ben Solo, all that, the Yuuzhan Vong, she was needed. Dr. Aphra could be that character that replaces her. Now, for those of you who know exactly what I'm talking about, you may be like, no, not at all. But I'm not saying that she is. I'm saying that she could be. It would make sense because a lot of the storylines match up. Now, I did read the Jason Solo series where he turned and all that jazz. It was a great series. I totally recommend it. look into it. I'll leave a description, or I'll leave a link in the section below to like Audible or Amazon or something like that, so you guys can check it out, or just go to your local library. It's probably going to be there. It's a great book. It's a great series. They took a lot of the stories from those original canon books, a lot of those stories from those tales, and just kind of blended them all together and made it Star Wars 7. Well, will Rey be, Aphra and Luke's daughter? Who knows? I don't know, but it quite possibly could be. I think that Episode 7 and everything leading up to Episode 7 and all the books surrounding it do let us think, or do tell us that she is Luke's daughter. I really believe that. Otherwise, it's, maybe not. I don't know. Very well could be that Daisy Ridley or Rey is Luke's daughter. We'll see some. I really think the opening credits or opening few scenes of that, I think we're gonna figure it out. Now, number 2 next on my list is Leia and Han. Now, one of the things that we see in the books, definitely something that we see in the movie, is the fact that Leia and Han still love each other, still loved each other. For those of you who haven't seen Episode 7, it's been 2 years. This is on you. But spoiler alert, Han dies. Right? And, Han dies. It's not that Han and Leia stopped loving each other, but something happened to drive them apart. Now, from everything we've learned in the books, from everything that we've learned in the movie, that something happened before Ben Solo became Kylo Ren. And what was that one thing? Could it be that Rey is Rey Solo? That she is the daughter, the twin of Kylo Ren? Possibly. And we do know that the Star Wars novels, or the Star Wars books, right now at least, are all centered around the Skywalker family. Now, I'm hoping that branches out and it's not just the Skywalker family. And I'll talk about that probably in another video, where it's quite possibly someone else, or it's quite possibly the Chosen One, and we'll find out more about what the Chosen One is, what the Sith Chosen One is, what the Jedi Chosen One is. I think we'll figure all of that out, or a lot of that out, in this film. But it's possible that Rey could be Han and Leia's daughter, and something happened that drove a wedge. And what would drive a wedge between a couple that loved each other off? I mean, they loved each other. No matter what you could say about Han and Leia, they did. They had a really great relationship. And what could be said about them, or what could drive a wedge between a couple like that, other than losing a child? And then what would then drive that other child to alienate himself? And that's quite possibly the loss of their daughter, right? And it could be that Rey was a kid. She was stolen from the Solos. Any number of situations could play out in this scenario. But two parents lose their daughter. Now, the problem with that is Rey would probably have a similar accent to her parents, and it is likely that she would pick up that Corellian, that Alderaanian accent, because when she left Alderaan, or when she was placed on Jakku, she had that mama, that clipped British accent, and that's what Daisy Ridley has, and she was told to have that accent. So I'm really curious to figure out whether or not that's the case. So I do feel like I'm leaning against the Leia and Han back and forth, simply because if it was Leia and Han, I think her accent would have been different, unless something happened where she was raised on a different planet, or I really don't know. She definitely has the accent. I do think is going to play an important factor. Now, my next one is something from the Star Wars Rebels cartoon, and that is Sabine and Ezra. Rey is the love child of Space Aladdin and, the 1980s punk, icon as Sabine. Very possible. Now, I think in season 4 of Star Wars Rebels, we are going to get some really interesting things happening, not only with the crew of the Ghost, but also with Rey and Sabine. I think we're really going to see a lot of stuff happen, but I don't know exactly what. There have been some moments. We know that Ezra and Sabine love each other as a family, as like friends, because they protect each other. Ezra, is willing to just lay down his life for his family and friends. We've seen that over and over and over again. In season 3, he goes to Sabine for help, right? And there's gonna definitely be a level of gratitude that comes with that, because she brings her people with her and helps them out, right? It's interesting, but war drives people together. And whether they marry and live together happily, or even for a time happily, or just have one drunken fling one night, it's possible, right? Now, that would put Sabine growing up somewhere on Mandalore, or in and around that part of the core worlds, and I think that it would be interesting to see who raises her. If not Sabine, if not Ezra, then quite possibly someone else. And we do know that there are Mandalorians who do have that clipped Imperial accent, and Sabine's love child could have been raised by someone who had that accent. Now, what would be interesting about this theory is if we take it one step further back, who were Sabine's parents? If Sabine's parents are just the normal whoever they believe them to be, and we did officially meet Sabine's parents, but one of the fan theories is Sabine is actually the love child of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Satine, the Duchess of Mandalore. Now, this was a story arc that took place in Star Wars Clone Wars. If you missed it, then that's not, you're probably in good company. There's a lot of people who missed that. Star Wars Clone Wars is a great show. You should invest in it. Definitely give it a chance. Same thing with Rebels. Rebels is a great show. You just have to get past the first season, probably the first half of the first season, not even the whole one. But it gets better and better and better and better. Season 4 is going to be phenomenal. I'm really excited for it. But it quite possibly could be. Now, if that was the case, what would be interesting about that is you have, if Obi-Wan Kenobi did have an illegitimate love trial with the Duchess Satine, that would make Sabine part Jedi, which wielding the Darksaber would be sweet and make a lot of sense for Sabine to do that. And then her falling in love and having Rey possibly would then make additional sense, because then Obi-Wan trained Luke, who trained Anakin. Now Luke has the opportunity to train Obi-Wan, or Obi-Wan's daughter, or granddaughter, or whatever. The stories would have to line up really well for that. Now, I don't know. This one, I think there's a lot of little things that have to line up perfectly for this specific one to play out. I don't necessarily think this is going to be who she is or her backstory. I think it could possibly spin from something like that, but I think it's more likely that Rey is Sabine's daughter than she is Sabine's daughter, who is also Obi-Wan's bastard child. With that, who knows? I mean, there are more far-fetched things in Star Wars, right? So we'll have to wait and see. Now, there are two more that I would like to point out, and one of them is this reincarnation concept. If we trust Shmi Skywalker, that she knew no man to conceive Anakin, then Anakin is the space Jesus, right? I mean, that's that storyline. But what I understand, there is a prophecy that goes back to both Jedi and Sith, or the origins of those groups, and where there is a brother and sister who grew up near a force tree, and this tree was a very powerful tree. It kind of imbued anyone who was near the tree with force powers. We know that in the comic Shattered Empire, Luke takes, who was it? Poe Dameron's mom on a special mission to Coruscant to steal one of these force trees. Turns out there are two of the force trees. They were just at the Jedi Temple. Palpatine had started doing some tests on them, and they take both of the trees. Luke takes one, and that is the tree that we see on Oct 2, or that we believe that is the tree that we see on Oct 2. Also, what's interesting is that tree looks like it's either dead or it has been severely damaged. Now, I am not an arborist, never have been, never want to be. But that tree does not look like it's alive. The second tree was given to Poe Dameron's parents, They planted it wherever he grew up. I believe it was on Yavin 4. And so it's possible that we could see Poe having Force powers, or maybe being just more in tune with the Force, who knows. But these trees, or at least the original story of the trees, are this family grew up, and these twins, brother and sister, or maybe they were just, older brother, younger sister kind of a thing. The older brother was seduced by the dark side and killed all of his family, even the younger sister, who was seduced by the light side, and she resurrected to kill the brother, right? Or she came back, or something to that extent. And correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, someone who knows more than I do. Now, this very well could be that story where Anakin is the son, or the brother, seduced by the dark side, reincarnated. Now, that's what they say, is like the chosen one will come again, and that's what they mean by that, is this character will be returned, right? Or this character will return to bring balance to the Force. Now, there's a Sith version of that, which is the dark character. It'll bring balance to won't bring balance to the Force, but it'll subjugate the Force. Then there's the light side version of that, which obviously brings balance. Now, that's where I actually think they're going to take this story, because J.J. Abrams, Rian Johnson, I think even Kathleen Kennedy have all said that Rey's parentage is not important, but it will be discussed in this next film, right? Who Rey's parents are, not even a thing, right? Not even a major aspect. Now, that doesn't make a lot of sense, especially if they're leaning towards Luke being Rey's parents. If that's where they're going with this, then it seems like that would be important, right? Because while a woman can give virgin birth to a child, unless there's something in the Star Wars universe like the men are much like seahorses, or maybe that's Jedi are like seahorses and they can deliver children, I don't think that Luke could do that. Unless he's become so powerful that he just combined elements and made Rey from like the dirt, like a golem. Possibly. Who knows? Not that golem. The last one. Now, this is probably the most far-fetched theory that I can throw out there. But in the Phasma book, right? So if you don't want to read Phasma, or if you're reading Phasma, you don't want any spoilers, just go ahead and skip to the end and all. But in the Phasma story, we get a lot of her backstory, and they talk about how difficult it is to raise children, right? Because Phasma's from like this desolate, post-apocalyptic world where there's like nuclear fallout and all this other crap. And for people to raise children, especially in certain areas, it is difficult for them to do this. Women can't get nutrients, the children die before, die during gestation, and it's tough. There are 2 children that are mentioned in this book, and the first one's name is Frey. Now, that would be a little on the nose if her name was Frey and then she turned out to be Rey. Now, we do get a little bit of information about this character. She eventually joins the First Order. She would have been like 10, 11 around the time that she was left on Jakku, which I think is a little older than the Rey that we see in the film when she's being left in Jakku. But it's really interesting because in the book they make a really big point out of this child being born. And then nothing happens. Right? Now, it could simply be that this is another introduction to the First Order stealing kids, raising them to be, villains and fighters. And that could very well be the point of her introduction as a character. Because it is mentioned in the book that this character, during training, dies. But she dies during, her young teens. Now, it is also possible for children to just disappear, especially children with Force powers, to disappear and become like the Inquisitors or become some version of that. I don't know whether or not that's going to be the case. It would make sense, but again, I don't know. It's probably that nothing will come from this character, but we shall see. Now, the other child that's mentioned in the book is the daughter of one of the narrators of the story, and as you read the book, that'll make a lot more sense to you. And I won't give away. I mean, I kind of did, but I didn't at the same time. But it would be interesting if she was left on Jakku under a pseudonym, under a different name, to protect her identity. Now, all of this stems around the fact that so many people have said Rey's parentage is not important. While I don't believe that in the slightest, I do think that it is possible that if they're right, if they're not just trying to mislead us purposefully, right, we'll see, right? I mean, then it could be that her parents are important. Then it could be a character like this. Someone from a backwater world, or, you know, a backwards world, who's not important to any other part of the story, or her background's not important to any other part of the story, except that her parents are dead. Those are, that's 5. I said I was going to do 4, but those are the top 5 that I think are possible. It could simply be that Rey doesn't have a family. Rey doesn't know who her parents are, and maybe she was like Anakin, whose mom gave, you know, virgin birth to the chosen one. But I don't know. We'll see. We have less than 100 days before the launch of Episode 8, and I am very excited. Now, there are books leading up to each of these episodes. So we had a ton of books leading up to Episode 7. We have a ton of books leading up to Episode 8. I'm going to be reading all of them and looking for little Easter eggs that'll give us more information about what we can expect from Episode 8. And I'll be doing book reviews and you know, Easter egg hunts for those. Leave a comment in the section below. Let me know who you think Rey's parents are. Do you think that she is going to be a Skywalker? Is she a Solo? Is she a Kenobi? I mean, is she a Palpatine? I mean, that's even a theory out there that I don't even want to remotely get into. I mean, is she the illegitimate child of Jar Jar Binks? Or, I'm sorry, Darth Jar Jar? Is that where she's going? Is that who she is? We don't know yet. What do you think? Leave a comment in the section below. Subscribe, like this video, share it with your friends. This has been Thaddeus from Going Nerdy, and as always, stay nerdy, my friends.